You are traveling on a country road. A sign warns you of the road becoming narrow up ahead. A car drives through the rail underpass ahead. There is another oncoming vehicle approaching, which becomes a developing hazard as the road narrows. You slow down and let the car pass safely through the underpass. Driving through a residential area. A bend restricts your view of the road ahead. You slow down and are prepared for any potential hazard you might come across. You then see a cyclist emerging from the junction up ahead to your left. As soon as the cyclist comes into view, it becomes a developing hazard. You are driving through a residential area. You see a learner driver approaching a junction on a road up ahead to your right. At this point, the vehicle is a potential hazard. You should be prepared to slow down in case the driver doesn't stop at the junction. The learner driver initially stops at the junction but then pulls out. As soon as the vehicle pulls out, it becomes a developing hazard. You are driving through a residential street with vehicles parked on either side of the road. As you're driving, you should be scanning your surroundings for potential hazards such as pedestrians emerging from between vehicles or car doors opening. You see two pedestrians walking on the pavement up ahead to your right. It seems as though they intend to cross the road. As soon as they come into view, they become a developing hazard. Driving through a residential area. The road surface is wet, so you should maintain a safe distance from the vehicle in front of you. As you travel further down the road, you see a large puddle on the right. A white car encroaches your lane in order to avoid the puddle. The developing hazard starts here. In this clip. You're driving through a suburban area. Scanning the road ahead, a vehicle pulls into the parking on your side of the road. This is not one of the developing hazards as it didn't make you significantly change your speed or direction. However, you should have clicked just in case. Further along the road, you see signs for a mini roundabout up ahead. As you approach the roundabout, you see a red car emerge to your right. It's the red car's right of way, so you slow down and allow it to join the traffic ahead of you. As soon as the car comes into view, it becomes a developing hazard. Shortly after, you see a cyclist on your left. At this point, the cyclist is a potential hazard. The cyclist signals to indicate that he is moving across the road in order to turn right. At this point, the cyclist becomes a developing hazard. You are driving through a residential area. You scan the surroundings and look for potential hazards such as cars emerging from junctions. As you progress, you see a milk van driving towards a junction on a road to your left. As soon as the vehicle comes into view, it becomes a developing hazard. You're driving through a residential area. You spot a large tractor emerging from a junction to your right up ahead. The tractor comes into your lane as a result of its size and the parked cars next to the junction. You slow down and stop, allowing the tractor to complete the maneuver. You allow traffic to clear and continue when it's safe to do so. As you drive along a dual carriageway, you see a sign warning you of crossroads ahead. Shortly after, you spot a large lorry up ahead making a U-turn from the opposite side. The lorry crosses the central reservation and enters your lane. As soon as it starts the maneuver, it becomes a developing hazard. You're driving behind a motorcyclist on a rural road. A car approaches a junction to your left. At this point, it is a potential hazard. It stops at the junction, so it doesn't develop into a developing hazard. You should have clicked as soon as the vehicle came into view, although it wouldn't have scored you any points. Further down the road, you see a white van in a lay-by up ahead looking to join the road. As soon as it starts moving towards the main road, it becomes a developing hazard. You're driving in the left lane of a 3-lane motorway. You notice an LGV, large goods vehicle, on the slip road to your left signaling to enter the motorway. It immediately becomes a developing hazard as soon as it comes into view. You're driving in the left lane of a 3-lane motorway. You see a stationary vehicle in the hard shoulder up ahead to your left. When you first see the vehicle, it is regarded as a potential hazard since it is stationary and will not cause you to change speed or direction in this position. However, as you draw closer to the vehicle, it starts to move and signals to rejoin the motorway. As soon as the car signals and begins to move, it becomes a developing hazard. You're driving in the middle lane of a motorway. You see a Range Rover to your right indicating to move into your lane. As soon as the vehicle signals and starts moving into your lane, it becomes a developing hazard. You're traveling through a residential area. A road sign warns you of traffic lights ahead. As you approach the traffic lights, you see a motorcycle overtaking traffic and a car waiting to turn up ahead. When the motorcycle begins to ride on your side of the road, it becomes a developing hazard. You're driving through a residential area. There are parked cars on either side of the road. This causes the road to narrow. You suddenly see a motorcycle emerge from behind a grey vehicle parked up ahead on your right. As soon as the motorcycle comes into view, it becomes a developing hazard. You are driving on a narrow country road. A sign warns you that the road is liable to flooding. You reduce your speed as you pass the Ford running across the road. After you drive across a hump bridge, you see a farm traffic warning sign to your left which gives you a clue about the hazard ahead. As you move past the sign, you see a tractor in a field. At this point, the tractor is a potential hazard. As soon as it starts to move in the direction of the main road, it becomes a developing hazard. You're driving through a residential area. After driving around a bend, you see a garbage truck up ahead with some dustbin men around the vehicle in high-vis jackets. As you move closer to the vehicle, you see one of the dustbin men walking into the road towards the truck. As the man moves from the footpath into the road, he becomes a developing hazard as he causes you to slow down. You're traveling along a narrow rural road. After you negotiate a bend in the road, you see 2 horse riders up ahead on your left. You also notice a white van driving towards you. As soon as it becomes clear that it won't be safe to pass the riders on horseback without slowing down, it becomes a developing hazard. There are 2 developing hazards in this clip. You're driving through a residential area. After driving around a bend, you see a dog on the opposite side of the road walking towards your lane. As soon as you spot the dog moving in your direction, it becomes a developing hazard. You slow down and stop until the animal has moved and the situation is no longer potentially dangerous. Further down the road, you see a flashing yellow Belisha beacon indicating a pedestrian crossing. You spot a pedestrian at the crossing moving to cross the road. As soon as she starts walking towards the crossing, she becomes a developing hazard. You're driving through a town center. You see a huge plume of smoke emerging from a building up ahead on your left. At this point, you should be ready for hazards such as emergency vehicles. You then see a fire engine with blue flashing sirens driving quickly in the direction of the fire. As soon as you see the fire engine, it becomes a developing hazard.